I'm excited to be with you today because we decided to take a little bit of a departure with our content plan and present sort of a dual webinar for you. It's sort of matching up with everything that my team and probably your team has been reading about artificial intelligence use in the telecom sector for voice and text messaging in platforms, in solutions that you may have already purchased, you may be using today, and also sort of bridging the gap between that and how my team and myself in particular have used AI for marketing purposes. So we're going to hit both. And I think you're going to come away with not only a hands-on tool to replicate what myself and the rest of my team and my sales manager and I have together created, which I think will be interesting and exciting if you have not yet tried to use AI in a meaningful way to try to impact your business from a marketing perspective, but also get sort of a higher level view of how AI is being put to use again in these telecom solutions. Um, and also want to encourage you, obviously you've got the chat box or the Q&A. Feel free to chime in. And when you have questions as I'm going, I'll be keeping an eye on that. And we also will do a little exercise together in a minute that I think will open your eyes to sort of how AI is already fooling us, giving us opportunities, but already fooling us as well. And of course, as always, I am recording this session. So if you have to drop out, totally understand. We'll be sending out a video recording tomorrow. And, and again, I send all those emails from my personal address, well, my work personal address. So if you have any questions, thoughts, input, anything you'd like, feel free to reply to that email and I will get that directly. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first is this test, and I'm excited to do this together with you all as a group. Um, the New York Times ran a really interesting story about how easy AI has already gotten in terms of being able to fool us of as to how images are either created by an AI or by a human, a human photograph versus an AI photograph that it had created. And I think if you want to even get sillier than this, which we'll start this in a second, you can also Google. About a year ago, there was a really silly AI video going around of Will Smith eating spaghetti. And he wasn't eating spaghetti, and it looked absolutely ridiculous. Like, there was kind of generated spaghetti in the frames, and he's kind of like trying to eat it, but the spaghetti's flying off the side or going through his. It was ridiculous. And they recreated that experiment a few weeks ago, and it looks absolutely perfect. It's Will Smith in situations he's never been in eating spaghetti. So if you want to see a silly example of before and after, go look that one up. It's been making the rounds the last few weeks. But I want us all to take this test that the New York Times created. I just took the images and recreated it here in Zoom. So I'm going to start this poll, and I'd like everybody to participate. 100% of you thought that the older woman with glasses was real, and nope, it was AI. And of the people who took the poll at the New York Times, 93% of those folks also got that wrong. But it's interesting here just looking at how many of us got it right versus got it wrong who took this poll at the New York Times. So again, this is artificial intelligence that obviously has been trained by data not only from the internet but lots of other sources, making images in real time and tricking us. And I shudder sometimes to think of how they'll be able to use this to trick us in different ways. But this is where we are today, and unfortunately, it could lead to obviously more deep fakes impacting us in the future. But it's just one small example. So let's just answer the question, what exactly is AI? And in general, it's really, it's the ability of a computer system or a big system of data in the cloud, wherever it happens to be, or an algorithm to imitate what looks like intelligent human behavior. You can go back. I remember being very young, learning about the Turing test, and can a computer simulate a human enough to pass a Turing test? Um, and it looks more and more like AI is getting closer and closer to being able to do that. And as we look ahead, there are just a few. Um, sorry, here I'm just gonna get rid of some of these questions that popped up. This is great. Thank you for doing that, everybody. And we all know that there's a few ways that we've already all experienced artificial intelligence. One of them that we probably don't even realize is technically AI is something like a tastemaker system, an algorithm that's built into something like Netflix that is saying, oh, you just watched, Seinfeld, you might like these other six, sitcoms, from the 90s. Um, all the way down to Siri and Alexa, these devices that we brought into our homes. I know I have that I know it's listening to me and responding to me in real time. Um, Down to, I love facial recognition on my iPhone. Like I don't have to put in that 6, 7, 8 digit code anymore. I just bring it up to my face and it unlocks. That's pretty nice. All the way down to the last two things that I think a lot of us that are in the industry have experienced, either created ourselves or are offering as part of our business. Our phone trees and chatbots that look like that simulate a human chatting with you. And all it really takes now is a very simple model of your knowledge base, of your help files, and it will actually interact with you as if it's a real human agent before potentially it dumps you off to a human agent at some point. But these are robots that are chatting with you and are simulating a human. And last but not least, something that we have here at Commio is a light flavor of artificial intelligence, something I would call, well, is known as predictive analytics, which is part of machine learning, which is what an algorithm that we created for routing calls more efficiently inside of our Commio voice solution so that it can change carriers and routes to save money, but also guarantee high quality and the highest, pickup rate possible, which is pretty cool. And we created those algorithms almost a decade ago and have been refining them ever since. So if we continue, what about generative AI, which I think is one reason many of you attended today, which is, okay, we understand the basics of artificial intelligence. We may have heard of machine learning. You just heard an example of predictive analytics under machine learning. But then there's something on top of all of this that was coined generative AI, which again is to generate using a large language model, human creative, output, right? Using a prompt to create high quality generated content. So we just saw an example of images that were created with a model that ingested lots of human faces and was able to create new artificial human faces that trick us. I just mentioned the Will Smith video eating spaghetti. And that's an example of video. So we now can create high quality video. There's plenty of video of Will Smith on the internet, along with lots of other favorite actors and actresses that can then be created to create new videos. And we know that was part of the last writer strike, the Hollywood strike. That was one of the main sticking points that held them on the line out there for a few extra weeks because that was the one item that Hollywood didn't want to give up, the ability to write it into a contract that they could create, you know, these generative AI versions of actors technically without paying them. And glad they held the line on that. I mean, hey, if I'm an actor, that's my bread and butter. It's me, right? So I got to make sure I get paid. And all the way down to things like poems, which is pretty incredible. I don't know if any of you have actually tried to use ChatGPT and asked it to write a poem. I actually did this with my mother-in-law, who is completely flummoxed about how this works. She has no idea, and we were like, "Hey, Mrs. K, you talked about meal planning," and I picked up my phone, and I have ChatGPT on my phone, and I literally said to it, I said, "Hey, um, my mother-in-law, she's 83, and she likes chicken and this and that and this and steak and blah blah blah, and and she wants to eat healthy. Create a meal plan, for the next 7 days and tell us what dishes you would make." And boom, right away, ChatGPT gave her the list of meals that was suggested. And then I said, now watch this. Let's take it one step farther and said, now I want you to create recipes for all of the dishes that you just offered, and also a shopping list at the end so that she can go shopping for those items. And it absolutely did all of the above. Here are all the recipes, and here's the shopping list that was associated with those recipes. And that literally took seconds to generate. Why? Because of course, ChatGPT was trained on the entire volume of the internet up until 2 years ago, and already has millions of recipes and lots of tips on nutrition and is absolutely one step. I mean, it's just like it makes Google look like me, old, where, I tell my son who is 22, he's down the street here in Raleigh at UNC, that the web came online the year after I graduated from college. So I'm literally one of the last humans that did not have access to the internet while I was in college. Um, and that completely changes things, right? He will never know a world that doesn't have access to something like this, where we had to go to a library to look up this information, and now we can just put it in to ChatGPT and kind of get anything that we need. But I think what's really exciting about generative AI as well, from a marketing perspective, is that it does have the ability to be a co-pilot for us to create not only really high quality emails for marketing and sales purposes, but also blog content and web page content. As long as, again, I love that Microsoft has branded their flavor of AI Copilot, because you don't want to put AI ever in the pilot seat, in the primary seat. You don't want it to be the author of your content. You want it to be a co-pilot. You want to be able to feed it ideas, excuse me, have it generate ideas and content, and then you as the human editor, or a human editor, or even somebody at a contact center who is looking at the output from, marrying a knowledge base to a large language model of, product information for our company. There still needs to be a human that goes through that content, adds the human element, as well as making sure that the AI didn't make mistakes, because guess what? It does make mistakes. I'm getting ahead of myself, but let's continue. So, in contact centers in particular, we really have seen some very innovative, interesting initial uses of artificial intelligence. And what's interesting is it's sort of a combination of, analyzing. You see her on the right, she's having a conversation with a customer that's being recorded, and there's a sentiment analysis based on the transcription of the call. Was it a positive call? Was it a negative call? It's taking notes on the call. It's creating a list of follow-up actions after the call. It's creating product idea lists for the product function of her company. So it's using, machine learning and natural language processing and speech analytics to do all kinds of great things. And on top of it, as I already mentioned, a Commio, again, our solution, boosts routing speed and accuracy and saving money, as well as, once the call is delivered, the contact center software is creating call analytics. It's recording calls. And it's really making sure that customers get better service, and that your product teams are being well informed about what your customers are asking for from the product that they're dialing in to get support for. And I love the last bullet here, which is, facilitate self-service, call deflection options, and let's agents focus on more complex calls. So, a lot of these AI tools can, completely deflect somebody from having to get to a real human to get help, because they can use the AI model instead. But once they do get to a human, there's a good chance that that call is going to be more worthy of a human interaction than just a very simple, response to a question. So there was also a great Metrigy survey that came out last week that I was reading, fascinating stuff, where they basically asked contact centers, um, we understand that there's apparently a chronic shortage of agents. And, this is funny. This is sort of like, remember back in the day, very early day of early telephones, where there were literally people sitting at a desk, putting, plugs into a switchboard to connect calls. We know that's been automated. So there's the beginning of that automation phase is already happening in the contact center, where somebody doesn't, like me, look like this, doesn't want to be sitting in a call center somewhere with the headset on, basically connecting those calls, which is basically, regurgitating information in a knowledge base to a customer. Um, there will always be a need for human interaction. I'm not saying that, but there's already an early indicator here that they were asked, look, is AI filling the gap between, companies are growing too fast to keep the right number of agents in their seats? And almost 9 out of 10 of these companies said that absolutely we're using AI to try to mitigate this issue of a chronic shortage of agents. And you can see here down the list here of how and what other ways does AI augment staffing at contact centers. Everything from, it doesn't take as many interactions, that require a live agent to shortens call time, reduces the time required for after call work. I don't know about you guys. I've been doing marketing for I've been in my role for a marketing role for over 30 years. I can't tell you much of my time I spent transcribing things like this webinar, um, doing basic note taking after meetings, creating work lists, and now with machine learning and speech pattern recognition, all those good things, all my calls can be turned into a list of to-dos before I even get off that call and then are distributed to everybody. What a time saver. Talk about efficiency. It's really built in. So very interesting things. So we know it's being put to use, at the contact center, and it's really helping to, reduce that error rate. It's making sure that those calls are higher quality, that the outcomes are more positive. And guess what? That leads to better retention. I think all of us on this call would love to have better customer retention. And we also get the chance to focus more on upsell, cross-sell potentially, and especially if somebody's mentioning product ideas on those calls and we're noting them and passing them to product teams. We're a product-led organization. Guess what? That will escalate revenue growth and profitability, as well as making our products better over the long term. And in fact, our friends at Dialpad and Convoso also have great articles about AI use in contact centers on their blogs. So certainly recommend head over to dialpad.com/blog or convoso.com/blog. Found a lot of great ideas on those sites. Really good folks. I want to say too, just a few examples of some really sort of cutting edge AI using organizations that are in the contact center software space, is Talkdesk. So you take a look at all the things that go into their CX cloud. Again, they're doing the customer experience analytics. They're making sure that employees can both be engaged with from the HR function and marketing function all the way over to collaborating internally as employees. And when they say omni-channel engagement, we're talking about voice interaction, chatbots, as well as text messaging and, sort of their version of in-app messaging. And you can see it's a wide range of use of, again, generative AI built on your contact center information and then your company's information, keeping it all safe within the Talkdesk platform. So it's not part of the large language model that is OpenAI, that's the whole world. And you're using it to really update your entire organization across the board and provide better service. Same thing at Qualtrics. I love this example here on the right, by the way. This is a chatbot interaction with a support bot. And you can see here that it's literally looking at what the person typed and figuring out a lot of things about it. So you can see here, hello, my service is down. So that is a negative sentiment, and it's already being flagged as there's a service outage without having to do anything. Next is, hey, I've contacted you several times. So, hey, we're flagging that as, hey, this person's having hard difficulty, with our solution, and they've already made repeat contact attempts, and no one seems to be able to help me. This is incredibly frustrating. So the intensity is high and the emotion is frustration. So again, this is, this pattern recognition on some text with a large language model, that is flagging this conversation right away and responding in the best possible way. So, they're saying here it's omni-channel analytics and AI powered automation. And you can see there on the bottom right, you can see there's lots of opportunity here to score conversations, score interactions, make sure that each agent it can be flagged for their strengths, their opportunities for growth. Um, and by the way, I love the one on the bottom right, surging topics for call reasons. So, we know that this has been around a long time and where our agents were actually checking boxes in post-call, surveys and things that were built into contact center software. Well, now it's being done automatically where you can literally see these lines changing over the course of a day. What are the topics? Why are people calling? And right away, hey, calls aren't working. I can't get through. My service is down. These things are going to start popping off very quickly, as you watch these gauges. So really interesting time to have access to these more cutting edge AI enhanced contact center software solutions. And last is Observe.ai. So again, they build themselves as real-time AI. And you can see here on the right, which is interesting, is you can see here customer was concerned about price increase in the second year. That was what was entered. And now, the person running the phones can literally say, oh, so it started with a cancellation request. I asked them why they were leaving. I gave them a few new updates that I thought would be helpful of why they should stay. I gave them a 20% discount to help them stay because they were concerned about the price in the second year. Oh, and the customer accepted it. And now, guess what? The new plan is now 149 a month and it starts on this date. Again, as somebody who's worked in lots of organizations where, the sales process is super manual, it's usually, a form built in, something like Salesforce. Um, where you have to fill in a new opportunity, you have to check all those boxes, you have to put in the different fields for reasons. Imagine if that could all be populated with AI based on the conversation that you're having with a customer. Really interesting time to be leveraging AI inside of our platforms, our CRMs, as well as our contact center software. So let's switch gears here a little bit. I'm going to put on my marketing white hat now and really think about it was about a year ago that my VP of sales and I, Eric Leon, were watching sort of the explosion of OpenAI uses, both in sales and marketing, and said, we should really consider how we can use it. We want to use it the right way. We know you don't use it to just write content and post it or email it. You can't do that. But again, thinking of it as a co-pilot, what could we be more efficient at doing in our positions as sales and marketing leaders at Commio? To use AI. So we started with what are we going to need to gather up? And I want you all to think of the same thing. And this is important. I think that with any new technology, there's a rush to start using it really quickly before you take a breath and really sort of set the stage for success right out of the gate. I'll give you a great example is I know there's a lot of you on the call right now that are either doing voice or text messaging today. Remember about 2 years ago when the campaign registry came around and basically everybody was told they had to start registering their campaigns and their brands. People were, you know, I'm going to use the word unhappy, but they were also confused. And I think in a lot of cases, we sometimes give, certain technical people on our teams these assignments, and then they just go in and fill out the forms as fast as possible. And that led to campaigns and brands, being rejected, and then we had to refile them, and it cost us money every time, and it just became a quagmire. But with a little bit of foreplanning, you can get those brands and campaigns registered the first time without really any trouble. It's the same thing with AI. So if you're thinking about using AI for marketing, generative AI for marketing, here's some things you want to sit down and gather together. And I'm going to give you guys a template that will literally streamline this for you and help you go through these steps without, any manual intervention. The first thing is you want to make sure that you've taken the time to properly document um, the information about your company, right? So what is your elevator pitch, right? What are the strengths of your products? What makes your company unique? Get all those things documented. Obviously, they're probably already on your website, but maybe they need to be cleaned up. And we spend a lot of time and energy doing that here at Commio. We were switching over from Think to Commio, and we took the time to really do a brand analysis and new messaging and really sat down and really decided what made us unique and different and better in the marketplace against our competitors. So that information was available to us. Next is what is your writing tone? What's your style? A lot of people want to be informative but professional. Some people have a much more whimsical tone to their copy. They like to be, a little bit more creative, a little bit more interesting, not so, stiff. That's fine. Whatever it is, make sure you document what it is. And by the way, how big are the pieces of content that you want to create? So in this example, I'm going to show you how to use generative AI to create um, some cold emails, which we know that, salespeople aren't that excited about writing emails, but they have to write them. But what if we could give them a start and say, hey, we use Gen AI to create a draft of a series of emails to outreach to X company. We can give them that leg up and then allow them to put the human touch on it before they send it. So it's just one example. Next is again, type of content desired. Again, let's start with cold emails. And guys, I can't stress this enough. Ideal customer profile/audience is key. Everybody thinks that, well, anybody can buy our widget. Well, that's not true. I guarantee you, you know that there are three or four different types of companies and then titles within those organizations that make up the lion's share of the buying committee that's buying your products or services. Focus, focus, focus. Find two or three ideal target audiences to focus on and make sure you document it. Is it the CTO? Is it, the contact center manager? Is it the telecom engineer? Or is it the CTO? Is it the CEO? Right? Make sure that you know who those are. And next, too, think about the problem that your product solves for, and write it out. What are the three or four different problems that your product solves for, and document that. Get that written down. Because again, you hear what I'm doing here. I'm creating this sort of almost like a language model of your company to be used for marketing purposes that will feed OpenAI. Next is an outline or a script. Again, I'll show you how this works. It's pretty straightforward in this template, but an outline basically of, well, here are all the different things, by the way, you've already heard me say that you need to gather, and then how do we plug that into a prompt that will output for us from a generative AI standpoint, and also good examples and case studies. So you'll also see how to put case studies to work inside of your prompts as well to really more personalize the email to match up with, the person that you're communicating with. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and step over and say, um, let's start here. Here is the template that I promised you. If you can actually open up another browser right now if you'd like, go to commio.com/email builder. That's just where I made a shortcut for you, make it easy to get to this Google Sheet. So I would start by logging into Google, then going to commio.com/email builder, and then this sheet will appear. And you're not going to be able to do anything to the sheet. I locked it. So the first thing you want to do is go up to File and save it to your workspace. Then it becomes yours, and you can modify it to your heart's content. And you'll notice on the first tab that there are a few things that you need to do. So before you can use this template to create cold emails using your company's information, right, as a starting point for your sales team, you'll need to download um, a Chrome plugin called ChatGPT for Sheets and Docs. And basically what that does is that it will tie your Google Sheet to OpenAI, and an OpenAI account. You need to go register over there. And when you register over there, you will be given something called an API key, which is basically your account. So you're going to be paying, a few four or fifth, 500th of a penny per generated email. It's very inexpensive. I just will tell you that for the entirety of the many thousands of emails that we created with the tool to give our sales team a leg up last year, we spent less than $600 total on the API calls to generate those emails. That was a lot of emails. So it's very cost effective, even now. Although I do hear they're starting to get a little bit more expensive, but still, you think about that in the grand scheme of things, it's not that bad. So what have we done so far? You got my sheet, you're in Google, you downloaded the ChatGPT for Sheets and Docs Chrome plugin, you've installed that plugin, then you went over to OpenAI, you registered for an account, you got your API key, you put that into the plugin. Don't worry, it'll walk you through. It's really straightforward. Put in your API key, which means that when you use the sheet to generate emails, of course, it will be charged to your account and you'll be able to start generating things. So oh yeah, Julie, thank you. Yeah, please repeat the ChatGPT plugin. Yeah, so it is called ChatGPT for Sheets and Docs. And again, after you grab this sheet, Julie, you'll see there's a link right there under number 2 in this screen capture of the first page that you can click on, and it will actually take you to the page where you can download that plugin. So no worries, it's all it's all built into the sheet, walking you through these steps. Now that you have all this information, you have your company information, you have the sheet, you have the plugin installed, and you have your OpenAI token, and you've got it all installed. And again, all this is here on the sheet. You don't have to remember any of it. It'll walk you through. Then you're able to get started. And the first thing that you're going to do is fill in your company information. And I just want to, by the way, I want to jump to the end because it's fun to not leave you hanging, which is let's see an example of one email that was generated, the first email in the cold email sequence, right down here in the middle. So this was the first email in the cold email sequence of four emails. And just let me briefly read you parts of this to give you an idea. Again, this was 100% written by OpenAI. So it starts off with the person's name, Magna. I hope this email finds you well. Okay, not a bad human start. I came across TechPoint Solutions and I was impressed by the range of professional services you provide in software development and IT consulting. Your commitment to helping businesses expand their IT efforts seamlessly is commendable. All of that, guys, came from their LinkedIn profile, the description of the company, and it was rewritten by OpenAI. So probably not a bad summary of the company. Next is given your role as director of operations. Aha. One of the items we're going to feed in here is a list of our target prospects that we want to get emails, and it's first name, last name, company name, and it's going to be the link to their LinkedIn profile, link to their website, their title. These are all things you can get from ZoomInfo or Seamless, two companies you can buy this data from. And that will actually be plugged into this data set when these emails are created. So we know their role. So given your role as director of operations, I thought our companies might be a good fit. Okay, great. Now it's going to use the information I fed it about my company. You can see there on the first tab. At Commio, we understand that meeting customer expectations requires quality voice and messaging offerings and top-notch support. And again, that came from my description of Commio. So our leading edge voice and messaging platform equips you with the tools you need to excel, manage voice and messaging, drive profits, and maintain healthy network productivity proactively. And again, that's ChatGPT literally comparing Commio to Magna's company, TechPoint Solutions. It actually makes that connection, and you'll see how it does it in the prompt. So we're already working with many companies and platforms like Zoom, Service Titan, da da da, as well as local and regional voice providers. And I'm curious to explore if Commio Solutions can add value to TechPoint's operations. So again, we fed it the list of company logos that we're allowed to communicate externally, that it will plug in there. And lastly, if you're available, I would love to schedule a quick call tomorrow at 1 o'clock to discuss farther. So not a bad cold email. And I will say the reason that this whole project started, before I go through the rest of the sheet, by the way, is Eric and I sat down and Eric actually created a list of companies and he gave our account executives that list and said, hey, we know that these are the emails that we normally send them. I want you guys to write those emails for these companies. And then we had ChatGPT write those same emails. And in a very small, unscientific test, we gave it to a few people and said, hey, if you were writing a letter to Magna at TechPoint Solutions and you read this first email was written by the AE and this one written by ChatGPT, which one do you feel is better? And about 80% of the time, the people in our unscientific study chose the AI email over the sales email. Now, there was still some cleanup necessary. The AI would still hallucinate occasionally. It would get confused. So you still have to edit these. But imagine how much time and energy you can save by having the AI be your co-pilot, write them for you, and then you have to do the review portion. That's exactly what we did as a test. So we're starting with the sheet. Hopefully you guys, again, commio.com/email builder. This is, oh, good. This is the more zoomed in version of the first tab with all the different steps. Um, and again, this is the first of only two tabs where you should make direct edits. So you're going to have to swap out all this company information with your company's information, right? Just follow along with kind of our example of Commio and just fill in your items. And you can see down below sort of a summary of the subject lines and the bodies of the emails in this sequence. Okay. And again, digest this at your leisure. It's all here in one easy place. And you can see across the bottom, guys, there's a couple tabs. If you're not used to working on a multi-tab Google Sheet, I think you're in for a treat because you can connect data on multiple tabs together to create an ultimate outcome. And this may be the first time you've had access to something like this. And it kind of blew my socks off because I hadn't really done much of this myself. And a lot of the credit goes to Eric, my partner in crime. So once you fill in this first tab, right, with your company's information, the next tab over is put company data here. And that's what this looks like. So you can see at the top, this is the only sheet where you should add or edit information. Now, again, you can always come back and get another copy if you mess up, and you will. Don't worry about that because you can always get another copy. But you don't want to mess with any of these other tabs you'll see in a second because they're all automated, they're already pre-populated, and then we'll do sort of the advanced level stuff in a minute. So you see here, this is where you're going to use something like Zoom Info or Seamless. Zoom Info, more expensive, smaller number of credits, good service. Seamless, a lot less expensive. Quality data is not as high as Zoom Info, but if you're doing any sort of high levels marketing and sales, those are the two go-tos for prospect information. You can see, so all we need is first names, last names, emails, their titles, the name of the company, their website, and then an account description, which will come with the enrichment, which is great. These are usually 150 to 250 words that are written by the taken from websites, from LinkedIn profiles, and it's a field that will come through when you enrich your prospects through one of those tools. And lastly is the company's LinkedIn profile as well. And again, and remember, we've already populated a tab with our company information. Now we have our prospects information. And now you see the third tab here is called ChatGPT prompt. So remember what a prompt does is it prompts OpenAI to do something for us. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. And you'll see here that as you populate the contact page, see, do not edit, will auto-populate. The ChatGPT prompt tab will fill up with a list of all your prospects down the left-hand side. Now, what's going on the right side? Okay, we don't want to touch it, at least not today, but this is where all the prompts are. So think about the first row underneath cold email one body, two, three, and four. Those first boxes, right? Those first cells contain a prompt to generate an email using my company information and my prospects information. And eventually you can come back when you become an advanced user here and you can actually edit the prompt in that first box and then just drag it down to repopulate all the other fields, right? If you want to do that. I'm not telling you to do that now. Don't do that now, but I'm just giving an idea of how that works. So this page is bringing together company information and the prospect information, and now is layering on the prompts. So what to do with those two pieces of information and bringing it together. So let's get to the fun part, the generate email results tab. But actually, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. I get too excited. Let me show you an example. If we open up the cold email one body, what does the prompt look like? This is the entire prompt. Okay. So it starts with equals quote, which is just our way of feeding the information to ChatGPT, which I'll show you how that works in a second. So we're saying, hey, ChatGPT, I'm looking for help building highly personalized emails. The email should use specific details from the prospect's LinkedIn or website to personalize the email. By the way, sorry, part of it got cut off. It should be trustworthy. It should sound professional. Again, that's the way that I want our copy to read. And I want to include information about my company solutions that convinces them to take a meeting with me. By the way, I added this because I kept using the word impressed all the time. Like, I'm impressed with, this was impressive. And so we're continually trying to beat that word out of ChatGPT. So we even put this in here. By the way, it doesn't work about 40% of the time. But we said, hey, don't use the word impressed because it was getting a little overbearing. Look at the rest of this, guys. Here are the items you can use. And remember, we're talking to ChatGPT. We're saying my company, which is, look, it's saying go back to the start of your tab and grab this cell and this cell, which is, the company description and another piece of information from that page. And then we've got prospect's name, website, company, prospect's company name, title, LinkedIn, the prospect's company description, which we got from the enrichment, and then the problem and solution statement from that first tab. And then we're saying, here's what I would like you to prioritize when you write. Like, how mind-blowing is this? We're literally telling a computer, please prioritize this. Use selling psychology to write based on the title or role of the person. Remember, ChatGPT has completely hoovered up most of the internet at large, and that's lots of business information, lots of selling psychology data, information, books, people's information about how to use selling psychology and marketing and sales. It's all in the language model. So we're telling it to use that. Use selling psychology to write based on the title role of the person. Keep it short, Don't use the word impressed. Remember, I already said don't use the word impressed. You use it too much. Act as a person, not as a company. We want it to sound human. And then we're saying, here are the phrases I would like you to avoid. Fellow provider, because for some reason we saw it using the word fellow provider a lot. So again, these are all things you can add or edit as you go. And I love this part. This is the groundbreaking thing that we found in some example prompts. You put a row of dashes and say, the cold email should be structured like this, another line. And within this section, we literally give it some tokens and tell it what to fill in. So first name obviously comes from the first name field in our prospect information. And next is the first paragraph is friendly email opener summarizing the value of the company in the company description. Make sure you mention the company by name. Do not use the word impressed anywhere. Did I mention it used the word impressed too much? So that's the first paragraph, just like I read to you. Then the second one is express curiosity if our companies would be a good fit. Address the problem in a way that indirectly shows how we're already working with many companies like these companies, along with local and regional voice providers. Remember, we just heard it using those names. And then invite them for a quick call tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Keep the message short and professional. And then the word best, and then we leave it alone, and then we put another row of dashes, and then fill in the above placeholders and write the cold email exactly like above. I don't know about you guys, when this is what came out of the result of our testing, it's kind of the hairs on the back of my neck stood up when I started to see the emails that were coming out of this. Like, wow, finally, a useful automated way to put ChatGPT to work in marketing as a test to give us some really good emails that we could use to test. So, by the way, that's just the first cold email. We've got 2, 3, and 4 as well, but you can go look at those examples as well. So let's go to the next tab. So this is where the magic happens. So you'll see here, again, do not edit, will auto-populate. On the right-hand side now, this is where you are going to need to manipulate the screen. So when you install the ChatGPT plugin in Chrome, you'll notice that one of the things you can do with it, obviously, when you open it, is you can turn it on and off. So once turn it off, okay, after you get it all good, make sure that it's, off. You don't have it running yet. Populate the sheet, get it all ready to go. When you're ready to generate emails, you turn on the plugin. And what you'll do is you'll come over here and you'll notice I've got the first cell under cold email one highlighted. And what you'll do is you just grab that little handle on the bottom right and you drag it down. And what will happen is that ChatGPT will start with the first cell. It will generate the email. Then that first cell, it'll populate it with the email. Then the second one, then the third one, then the fourth one. Now, depending on the time of day you're doing this, you'll start to see some errors pop up if it's overloaded. If you're doing this late at night, like I had to do, or 5 o'clock in the morning, like I had to do to get around bottlenecks, you'll notice it does a really good job and it actually can write them pretty quickly when the whole rest of the world isn't hitting ChatGPT. And I guarantee it's going to get better over time. So you literally, again, grab that handle, that little blue dot in that first cell and drag it down. And the deeper you go, the more emails it will generate at a go. And there's even a tool built into the plugin where once it's done, you can literally say, replace errors, and it will go and find all the errors in the sheet and replace them with actual emails, and it'll keep doing that until it finishes. Now, there are times where this chore for a couple hundred prospects would take, not chore, this fun experiment with this sheet would take literally maybe 20 or 30 minutes to generate all the emails if I had 500 or 600 prospects. And there were some days where it took 3 or 4 hours because there were so many errors because I was trying to do them during business hours. What a dummy. I should do them late at night or in the morning. Anyway, I'm being facetious, but you get the idea. So it works the exact same way for cold email body 2, 3, and 4. I was experimenting here with just making the second cold email any thoughts and then repeating the cold email one in that message, which you'll see in the examples, but we'll get a little deeper into that as you look at that. So how cool is that? So now you have a way to tie a spreadsheet to ChatGPT with the prompts pre-populated to write cold emails, drag it down, auto-generate. And you'll see here again, here's the example again of, this first cell for the first email is Jake. I came across Pulaski electric system with over 100 years of experience, PES has undoubtedly established itself, blah, blah, blah. Again, this looks a lot like the other email we just looked at. So this is how you can really get the emails out of this tab, by the way. If you just click on a cell, hit copy, open a text document, hit paste. That's how you can sort of examine individual emails. But really what will happen is once all this is done, guys, and you've got the whole sheet in front of you, what I do is you see in that first cell where it says first name, right? That first blue cell, first name. If you click in that, then you go all the way to the bottom right of the sheet to the last email under cold email 4 at the very last cell, and then click, hold down shift and hit click. You've now selected the entire sheet, right? And then you hit copy. And then what I do is I open up Excel and I go to the first cell in the upper left, I click it, and then I hit paste. And boom, all the beautiful information is visible. So all the first name, last name information on the left-hand side is there. And then on the right-hand side, I see the big blocks of all 4 emails per company. And what I then do is I make that really big. I fill my widescreen monitor with it. I drag the rows down so that I can see everything. Because guess what? You're going to have to edit it. You cannot trust ChatGPT to do all this all right all the time. And I'm going to give you a couple shortcuts for your editing. So now that we're inside of Excel, we can start doing our editing, right? So if we hop over, you can see here's an example. What I normally do is on this tab called Cleanup, I'll take that first row, that first cold one email row, I'm sorry, column, the entire column, and I'll select the whole thing, copy it, and I will paste it into the sheet in this column so that it's all inside of the Google Doc and I can make some edits. And you can see here on the left, there's a sort of a list of things that you should do to clean up your copy. And I'm curious how many of you use something like HubSpot or Eloqua or any of those sort of automated email systems. Well, this is just a chunk of text in every single cell. It's not going to look right. If you would take this and try to upload it into HubSpot, for instance, and put it into an email, it would just be a big block of text. So I'm going to save you guys some time. So the first thing that you want to do is what I would do is I would go through all of it and read it. You're going to have to skim and read every single one. You're going to have to edit every single one to make sure that there isn't anything that's out of place. And then you start to do searches and replaces for things, right? Like the first thing is you're going to search and replace and get rid of these quotes, right? You see how there's a quote at the beginning and a quote at the end? Great. You'll notice, look at email 1. That's great. It ends with best. Okay, the second one is Jake. It ends with best. Look at the third one. It starts with, hey, Jake. Okay, I didn't tell it to say, hey. It did that. And then look at the bottom. It says best regards instead of best. And then it has bracket your name bracket. I didn't tell it to do that. So I have to do a search and replace to get rid of bracket your name bracket quote, a bracket your name bracket. You'll realize very quickly there'll be 5 or 6 things that it will start to add. And when you do a search and replace in Google Sheets, you'll be like, wow, there was 220 your names in there. Good thing I search and replace and got rid of it. Here's the key, and this took me much too long to find, and you get it for free, which is the very last thing you want to do on your rows of emails to get them ready for something like HubSpot is you need to replace line breaks with, you know, bracket BR bracket, that's HTML for line break, right? And what I do is you see here on the left, if you do search and replace, in the first find you do \n. Okay, not forward slash, \n. Do I always get those mixed up? I'm sorry. You see it here. It's the one that's leaning, sorry, on your camera. It's the other way. You do /n, which apparently, according to Google Sheets, that is the stand-in code for a line break that you can't see. And then you replace it with bracket BR bracket. And you see that you check match case, whatever, match case. And what you want to do is you see under search, it says this sheet. Make sure because it'll default to the entire worksheet, like the entire thing. You don't do that. You'll have to do /n BR and then search only this sheet because you don't want it to go back through all the other tabs. You don't want to do that. You just want it to be this sheet. And then you can see down here at the bottom, look at this. replaced 3,242 instances of a line break with the HTML line break. Beautiful. And what will happen is then you'll take this column. This is your first email cold one. Copy the entire column, go back to your Excel, paste it. Now grab email two, right? And then email three, and then email four. And when you're done, you'll have an Excel sheet that'll have all the right headers for all your columns. You'll have all the right copy and formatted properly in your emails. I'm sorry, in your Excel cells, and then you can save that as a CSV file. That's right, comma, separated values. Save it as a CSV to your computer. And then it's that Excel file, that CSV file is ready to be imported into something like HubSpot because it will absolutely populate all the right fields. Um, and what you'll need to do is create some custom content tokens inside of HubSpot. So you're going to want to have plain text email, a text token, whatever you want to call it, like I did in the sheet. If we take a step back, you see I called it cold email 1A body HTML. That's the custom code for the body of the first email. Then there's for number two, number three, number four. So I had to create those custom fields inside of my email program so that when I imported it, it would go through the spreadsheet and say, okay, I know all these things. First name, last name, email, company, cold email one. Ah, great. You already created that as a custom text only field. Fantastic. And then two, three, four. And then we'll import all of that into their user records inside of HubSpot. And then you can go over into HubSpot and literally create an email and just basically make the body of it cold email 1A body HTML. And it will pull that in at the user level so that as you send it to this list of people that you've uploaded, it will know to pull in email 1, 2, 3, 4 into those emails. And by the way, I'm happy to even show you guys how that works inside of my HubSpot if you're curious. But I think those of you who have used HubSpot long enough know that's super dead easy. Once you've created the tokens and the fields and the custom emails. And you're welcome for replacing line breaks with BR because my goodness, I literally found it as a YouTube video buried deep. Somebody made it like 11 years ago for Microsoft Office. Um, and it was like a 22-second video. And all he did was go through those steps on his computer. And I'm like, you, sir, are a genius. Um, YouTube provides. So there you go. All right. So let's continue. So again, you'll notice that there's also another tab. Um, the last tab is called prompt. I think it's called prompt lab or prompt something that will allow you to um, edit your prompts if you'd like to inside of here and keep track of them. I'd like to keep track of the different tests that we did. So you can literally just paste them in here and you can experiment with them, rewrite them, then go back to the prompt page and then replace them. It's just a way to sort of worksheet it. So again, Commio.com/email builder will get you this sheet, copy it to your Google and knock yourself out. And you notice I also included, my personal email as well as my professional email with the recording of this webinar. And you feel free to contact me if you have any issues with it. But caveat emptor, and I already said one of the things that's really important about that example is you need real people to monitor, edit, manage your AI content and usage. And that starts at the contact center level. So obviously, you need real humans still. You still need agents to monitor the chats that are coming through. You need to make sure that the AI is behaving properly, your large language model is behaving, and that the information that's coming through is correct. Also, you may have seen we had a great blog post, thank you, Sherry, about AI generated voices on robocalls are now illegal per the FCC. They go against TCPA rules. So again, you'll notice this is, illegal robocalling using AI generated voices are prohibited. Basically, think of it as yet another log on the fire of the shaft rules, right? Things that you're not allowed to do. So they really are trying to get ahead of scammers using it to, for instance, there's a lot of hours of me talking online, and I'm under no illusion that somebody couldn't take 8 or 9 of those videos, 10, 15, and make a perfectly good sounding version of my voice and, you know, start making illegal robocalls or, calling my wife and trying to scam her out of something and she thinks it's me talking. I'm scaring myself saying these things, folks, but it's true. But again, using AI generated voices on robocalls are now illegal. And this is only a few weeks old. Um, Again, biases on the internet may influence your content. I can't stress this enough. Again, think of ChatGPT as your co-pilot, right? It's going to write some stuff for you. You can use it to write blog content. I think just seeing the prompt examples that I showed you right away, you're like, oh, what if I just changed it to say, write a blog post that's, 1,000 words on this topic, and these are the different things I want you to say. Yeah, absolutely. Go knock yourself out, experiment. But just remember that there are lots of biases in the large language model that is being used to generate this content. And one of the biggest sites that was harvested, for instance, was Reddit. If you're not familiar with Reddit, I find it fascinating that they decided that Reddit was a good source to add to this model because there's a lot of not great stuff on Reddit. It's sort of, the world's message open source message board, that took over for the Usenet groups back in the day. Oh my gosh, I just dated myself. But there's a lot of biases by people and information on those websites. So you need to be careful what is being generated. And last but not least, plagiarism, plagiarism, plagiarism. Just remember that the way that it works is that it's trying to guess what the next word is in the sequence of the content that it's generating. So it is using other people's content. So you still have to have a human edit it. You need to have an edit review, a human editor review it, edit it, and add that human element before it's ever published. So we know there's lots of school kids and college kids that have already gotten into trouble by just generating something with the AI and turning it in. Can't do that. We can't do that for a lot of different reasons, legal reasons, and none of us want to put bad content up on our website. So you still have to be cognizant of that. And yeah, give it a try. And this is what I keep telling people that maybe even what I just presented might have been a little overwhelming. So I'll apologize for that a little bit, but think about it from the beginning of, I started by just going to ChatGPT, signing up for a $20 a month account to get access to the full newer versions of it, and started to put prompts in it. Started to have it create emails and content for me. And that's a great way to start. Do like my example of my mother-in-law. Like you use it to say, hey, I want to do an exercise program and I want to lose, 10 pounds next month. Give me an exercise program. I'm 35, ha ha ha, and I'm sedentary today, but I'd like to get active. Help make a workout program for me. You will be amazed at what it will give to you. Everything from, recipes, as I mentioned, to workout routines to the things that I just showed you for generating emails. Now you see here, here's a few things to try. Mid-Journey is great. I actually installed, I'm suddenly forgetting, I think it's Dolly. Was it Dolly that I installed? Anyway, I have a PC in my office. I installed it and took photos of myself, of my face in different, ways and had it create a model of myself and then started to output really whimsical versions of myself. My brother and I did it. We were exchanging silly photos of, medieval knights and crazy stuff. But it's a lot of fun to try, and most of it is free and free trials at least, if not free entirely. So, you can make those crazy images and you do things like that Will Smith video eating spaghetti with something like synthesia. I always deep brain. Let's go with deep brain AI. I can't pronounce anything. And lastly, copywriting. So again, you can use ChatGPT directly, but you can also use Microsoft Copilot. I love that they call their AI Copilot. It's perfect. Um, and give it a try. Um, so with that, I wanted to say that I'm excited about the early impact that AI has had on contact centers. I love that you can watch it, taking notes on conversations. I love that it can create a task list at the end that people can follow up on, as well as a list of product ideas that were brought up that you can give to your product team. And really, it takes, just like any new technology in a company, it takes a team to understand how these things are being created, how they're being captured, and then, of course, managers that are paying attention to the data, to the outputs, to making sure that things are running the way that they should. But I'm really bullish on the efficiency gains by things that were once manual, like transcribing this webinar that can now be done with AI, as well as other operations in the marketing space. And I really, again, invite all of you, commio.com/email builder, grab my worksheet, copy it, play with it, see how the prompts work. And I think pretty rapidly, we're only a little over a year into the AI revolution, both from a Gen AI as well as a contact center perspective. And it's only going to continue to impact our businesses in lots of different ways. And the sooner all of us get familiar with it and try it, the sooner we can sort of get over our fear of it and then put it to work in our businesses. So I know I went long. Sherry, I'm sorry. I promised I was going to try to keep this short, but once I get into my sheet, I lose my mind and spend a lot of time explaining. Hopefully it was helpful. But I am open to answering any questions. So I did have C two or three come through, so I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Um, oh, Julie, great. I'm glad that it'll be helpful. Yeah, that sheet was a labor of love, and I love sharing it because I not only have I used it to generate, I think almost 8,000 prospects worth of emails for each, and again for less than $600. Like how can you go wrong? Like it's a great testing tool. Um, but I'm glad it was helpful. Let me see. How much time does it typically take for AI to produce a blog post? How much time do you spend editing? Oh, those are great questions. So I would say that writing the blog itself, let's say it's 1,000 word blog post, maybe it'll take 10 seconds to write that. Maybe. I think what you should be saying is if it takes 10 seconds to write it, you probably should take 10 minutes to create the prompt, right? Like think ahead of, and write these out. Who's the audience? First of all, what's the subject? Literally write these out. I want to write a blog post about this. My audience is these people in these companies with these titles. I'm trying to get this across. Like, remember, we're telling, make it like you're talking to a human editor. And we want to get these bullet points across. All right, put them all out there, bullet it out. And then what I recommend you even take it one step farther is say, I want it to be in 5 sections, and I want section one to be about this. Write the header as well as the body of that paragraph. I want paragraph two to be about this. Write the header, write the body, so that literally you're telling it exactly what to do. And then when you hit that button, a minute later, 30 seconds later, or whatever, that 1,000 word, 500 word, whatever, 800 word output will match up with exactly what you told it to do. And I'm telling you, you will be amazed at the quality of it, but you'll also see immediately, oh, that didn't work out quite the way I wanted it to. And that is a hallucination, as they call it. That's not true. There's a lot of times where the information it's given you is out of date. You need to be careful, right? Now, I know the newer version of ChatGPT gives you access to the more up-to-date scraped model of the internet, but the ones that we were using, 3.5 and 4, were out of date. So it's something you need to, it's why you still have to go edit it. So the question was, how long editing it? It probably takes, on a regular blog post, probably if you spend 30 to 40 minutes editing it, you're probably doing okay because you need to read it. You need to read it backwards. You need to read it forwards. You need to potentially reprompt, And I will give you one more trick, by the way, for blog posts, which I smile saying this because it was so great. I literally went to three of our better ranking competitors because there's only three, so we know who they are. I'm not going to say the words out loud. Um, but literally found similar blog posts that they had written on some topics that were very interesting in the marketplace right now. I took all three of their blog posts and I put it into the prompt, and I literally told ChatGPT, I want my post to be more professional and rank higher than these three competitors' blog posts. And I put that dotted line and said, here's competitor number one's blog post. Boom, copy paste. Here's competitor two, copy paste. Here's competitors three. Boom. Now write my 850-word blog post version of this. And I want these 4 points to be in it. And it literally took all their blog posts and it wrote mine. I haven't done many of those, but I love what comes out the other end. It is exciting what comes out the other end. And the same thing can be true for writing product information as well, where you could take product if they're all very similar, and then you know your product better than anybody does, and then have it, you know, optimize for keywords and output something that then you go and edit. It's absolutely an efficiency gain. Um, but again, we have to be super careful about hallucinating and plagiarism and making sure that it still sounds like us and is edited. What does the generative AI learning curve look like? Well, I think you're experiencing it with me in real time, which is, I would say, again, start small. Think of something you can do for yourself, like, getting those recipes, whatever it is, like, a workout program, just play with ChatGPT. By the way, I mentioned I have it as an app on my phone. Um, so I try not to use Google. I try to use ChatGPT first instead of Google now. Because what is Google? Google to me still feels like the first couple times that I used it once they went away from just being like Yahoo. Remember back in the day when it was just a list of links to websites? There was no box to type in. Basically, what you did type, you were just searching for the name of a category of websites, and there was just a list of hyperlinks. Yeah, okay, those days are gone. With Google now, it still is based on Boolean operators, right? And or not. So when I enter a search, I still want to say, Microsoft and Word and I don't know. Sometimes I get Boolean all in my head. I'm making these operators because I know that that's literally how Google, indexed its information. You need to get used to sort of the new way of pretending like you're talking to, a really smart computer and giving it instructions and prompting it to do things. So anyway, sorry. Long story short is these Boolean days of Google, you know, first of all, the first screen of results from Google are now all ads. There are four of them at the top of the page. I have to scroll way down to find anything truly useful. And it's become more of a chore to use Google than it's ever been. With Gen AI and ChatGPT, there's no ads today. Please God, don't ever let there be ads. Um, so what it outputs based on my needs, is pure information and ready to be synthesized and reviewed. So great question. Um, oh wow, this seriously, John, you're going to ask me this question? Okay. Do you foresee AI replacing call center agents? Um, yes and no. I think with the examples we mentioned earlier, I think in any profession, where there's a large set of information that somebody's just sort of looking up and then regurgitating. There's a place for something like a chatbot that could replace that sort of part of their work. But I still think you still need humans manning the phones. You still need a human answering questions. You still need to provide great, quick, responsive customer service. That hits the nail on the head, and I think that's something we do at Commio very well, where yes, we have our knowledge base, yes, we have our API set. That's all great. But at the end of the day, it's our humans, our 100% US based support team that when you guys are having an issue and you have to file a ticket or you can't figure something out, that we need to reply quickly. And yes, we can use these tools to make the information we provide better, but it still takes a human to be responsive and fast and Johnny on the spot to provide that good service, but then the tools could be used not to replace that person, but to augment them so that they're only answering questions that are truly technical, that are more in depth, that the knowledge base potentially couldn't answer, or they're having a problem in real time. So I would say this is a boon for contact centers who are having staffing shortages, but it will never replace all humans. It'll just be like, there's still, believe it or not, some operators out there. You could still get to an operator at Verizon or AT&T. Those are still humans that for all the other tools and technologies that exist, there still needs to be somebody that can get on the horn with a customer. Yes, are they hard to reach? You know they are, but we still need those people. And lastly, do you still use humans to monitor your chatbot? Absolutely. So, for instance, HubSpot has a great chatbot built into it and even has new AI capabilities that they're fine. It's a start where we were able to feed it information and it could sort of modify some of the questions that it could answer. But really, we use the chatbot on our website in particular through HubSpot to give it a tree of information and choices to sort like, do you need support? Do you need sales? Are you, reporting a bad call or whatever? And those all trickle down into multiple different people at the end of the tree who then still have to pick up that chat and actually interact with that human, which personally I think is the best way to go. And by the way, if you have one of those on your website, I recommend we have a great, hi Dennis. I don't know if you're on this call or not. I can't see the list. Um, but having a human who still is monitoring those chats are absolutely vital. Again, it's just like providing great customer success, customer service. You still need a human at the end of the day. All right, guys, I blew through our time. I apologize for going super long. Again, we've recorded this session. You can always come back and watch the tutorial on how to use the template and get our tips on leveraging generative AI in your marketing and sales. Um, and just a huge thank you for being with us today. I hope this extra sort of extracurricular content was interesting to you and useful. And again, please reach out to me, tim@commio.com. Reply to the email, you'll get the recording. And let's keep a conversation going. And I'd love to see what you're using ChatGPT and AI for in your business and even your personal life. You come up with an interesting prompt. So I'd love to see it. So with that, I'm signing off here from lovely Raleigh, North Carolina, the home of Commio. And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And thanks for hanging in today for our Talk Human to Me Wise Guys webinar.